You are about to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now. Aloha.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Cheerios. Cheerios.
Cheers.
Nice.
How you feeling? You were a little grumpy yesterday. You were a little
I'm tired.
anti-Monerotopia yesterday.
I was tired. I'm exhausted from everything. Holiday season, conference, show stuff. You know, kind of hits you sometimes. People aren't nonstop like
I like you got the tree in there a little bit.
I tried to move it around, but didn't really work out.
If you guys can't see, but that's actually a full Christmas tree. It's very nice.
Yeah, I couldn't really angle it because then it would just look funny. So
I like that.
I got
cool,
a little,
very
got
nice.
the little colors. I tried a little.
Sunita needs a break. She needs a vacay.
I need a vacay. Well, it's a lot. Holidays, buying
maybe
gifts.
Maybe we could have
huge
guest
family. Co-hosts. Okay, that would be cool.
If you're in town, you're in the New York area.
Please, guys, help us out.
Sunita needs a break.
Well, Christmas also, it's like overwhelming. I have a huge family and, buying gifts for everyone, the little ones. And, holiday seasons are always stressful. Right after Thanksgiving, it's like nonstop. But
luckily, I only have to buy your gift. And Franya's.
And yeah, I've been getting it. I have a very huge family. Yeah, so I think I've exploded, guys.
I still don't get your gift yet, though.
I'm sure you'll figure it out the day of. You always do.
Anybody have anything interesting to sell for Monero, for Sunita? Let me know.
Let them know. Let them know, guys.
I would like a fur coat. Those are controversial. That'd be a good thing to buy with Monero.
Well, you got me a nice coat last year, but it wasn't fur. It was that white one. White poofy one. It was it was a float as opposed to a coat. Yeah, it's tough to wear like an all white coat because then I feel like I'm gonna dirty it.
What do you want for Christmas?
I don't know. It's tough. You're good at getting gifts. You're actually pretty creative. Right. I'll give you that. The world is your oyster, Douglas.
You want an experience? You want a
The world
thing?
Is your oyster. Anywho, let's move along.
All right.
Watching the game in the background too. Croatia 2-1, if people care. It's the last weekend. I'm also sad that's ending.
Well, it's like a meaningless game, right?
Not meaningless, but it's third place. So we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a big game. Argentina and France.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
See who wins.
We're going to have a little World Cup.
A 10 a.m. brunch game party.
Yeah,
we'll be up at 8 in the morning tomorrow.
This is why you're losing your mind. We're trying to fit a lot of things in
to incorporate family, trying to incorporate show, trying to incorporate conference. I mean, it's moving it along. Thank God. Knock on wood. It's chugging along. But if you want to talk about the conference, let's quickly talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, you know the deal. Buy your tickets and just help spread the word. Get the word out.
Yeah.
Get the word out to your communities. It's coming together on all other ends. We got people reaching out, sponsors, really good speakers. Once again, if you want to speak or you recommend a speaker, reach out. I mean, we got a lot of people. We're trying to sort through. I don't know how many. We'll figure it out. Like I said, maybe we'll do even 2.5 days or like 2 days and like a little bit on.
Well, I'm sure
Friday night.
Yeah, I'm sure Friday night
we'll fit in a lot. I mean, the amount we fit into that one day. So now with the 2 full days,
I don't know. I hope people aren't disappointed. Yeah, because that was nonstop.
And maybe even we'll have like a second, not like stage area, not stage, but like a second area, like an auxiliary area, because we've had people reach out for like things
and they're
they want to talk about.
Talks,
which are interesting, but I don't know if we have other heavy hitters that we want to get up there. So
I'm sure we'll figure it out. I mean, it's slowly coming.
I can see that happening. We'll have
that's a good
auxiliary thing where we can have some other additional talks going on, especially because the layout of this venue, I think it would allow for that. So go get your tickets, spread the word. We keep raising prices subtly. slowly, just as a way to incentivize you guys to buy sooner than later. And hotels, we don't really have any word yet because we tried.
Yeah, we tried, but apparently you're not allowed
hotels.
to call till after New Year's. Yeah. I don't know why. Talk to them.
Very strange. They don't want to like look ahead more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's very strange. So even if we like, put out suggestions, like you're going to call and you're going to be disappointed because they're going to be like, well, are you coming next week? No, you're coming in May.
But there's plenty of cheap hotel spots around there. It's a safe area. Roma's super safe, super cool. We already reserved our Airbnb. It's the same one we had when we went down there to scope out the place.
Yeah, it was convenient. It was right around the block.
Any of you guys grabbing our? it's a nice Airbnb, but there's a lot of other ones, and they're all really nice in the Roma area. What else I want to bring up? Oh, gratuitous.
Yes, gratuitous.
We have new coffee from Colombia. So if you've never ordered gratuitous, now's a good time to check out, especially for the holidays. Yes. Maybe you're not a coffee drinker, but you can get your friends or family a coffee subscription.
Do so today.
It helps. It helps us grow it. I wish I had more time to focus on the gratuitous thing, but we're slowly amping that up. We got a lot of things going on with that.
We're moving at snail speed. We could only do
like a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
But that's all going to happen at once. Slowly, then suddenly.
Yep.
That's it. Let's get to
that's it.
The fun stuff.
Let's get into the price report. Let's do that now. Nothing else you want to chat about? I guess not. All right. The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Bawdy,
how are you?
What's going on, man?
I'm great. Hope y'all had a wonderful Friday evening.
Yeah, we did. Thanks for contributing so much to the last spaces. That was awesome, man. You were great.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, good stuff.
I liked the guest.
That was some good back and forth, and you were dropping some good Monero information. There was a lot of people, I guess that are his followers are B cachers, right? Did you get that sense?
Yeah, it seemed that way. I like how we have kind of an even mix of both people that came from maximalism and other people on the Bcash side. It's like, what's the one thing they can all agree on? Apparently, it's Monero.
Exactly.
So I've got a lot of stuff for you guys today. I'm going to try and fly through some of the stuff that we've covered previously. And then at the end, we're going to talk about Binance. That's a lot of stuff going on with that. A bunch of things coalescing at once. So, and I don't think any of us necessarily, Binance isn't necessarily our favorite #1 exchange to go to. And they could be on the ropes. It looks a lot like they're on the ropes. But let's go ahead and start with, where we're familiar, which is Monero. So we're basically hanging out still in this same channel. We recently tested the bottom side of this trend right here, which is not too surprising. You'll notice that I kind of redrew this top line a little bit. It's hard to draw a clean line. And maybe one of these days I'll kind of go over my preferences on how you draw lines, because I think it's really easy to get that wrong. It's really easy to kind of like try and make a bunch of rules. And there's, believe it or not, there's actually a lot of nuance to it. And you have to understand how to use trend lines properly, because otherwise it can be somewhat deceptive or it can be kind of misleading from time to time. So in line with that, I actually deleted a lot of my lines on the Monero chart and redrew a few of them. So let's take off some of these shorter term. There we go. So essentially what we're looking at here is kind of a wedge structure. Now, the bottom line down here is not necessarily as strong as you would want it to be. Maybe you would want to see another point, but it doesn't really connect well with anything. Maybe you could connect it to there, but that's a little bit dubious. But the point is that this looks a lot to me like a bullish wedge. These sideways wedges can sometimes be bullish or bearish, but this looks like we're getting close to a breakout. And this actually is not too different than the wedge that we had on Monero XMR BTC. So this big wedge that we had going on for really years. But the wedge that we're looking at on XMR USD looks similar to that. And I really do think we're going to break to the upside at some point. That could take until next year. You'll notice that these lines don't converge until somewhere around like the end of Q2 next year. So it's possible that we could come down here, test the bottom of that range. As I've been saying, I've been expecting that before we get a big breakout next year, we have one more pullback to happen. And I think that pullback has already started. So, the other thing that I thought was kind of cool is that, and this is kind of in line with things you can do when you're drawing trend lines. So we just connected the very absolute tippy top points there, and you can just drag this line down here, and you'll notice that it connects a lot of very interesting points. So we've got all those guys right there. We had these recent points. And so even though you have to kind of slice through the tops of these peaks here, when you're dealing with stuff like crypto that's so volatile, it's kind of okay to do that. And probably y'all have noticed on the Bitcoin and total charts that I draw, I do kind of the same thing. So, again, overall big picture here, Monero price looks great. It looks like this is fundamental organic support. It's hard to believe that we can get much below this area right here. I maybe they can drive price down below here. Like let's suppose Binance collapses or something, right? Maybe we can take a big spike down. But ultimately, I believe it or not, I think that Binance collapsing would be good for Monero's price in the long run. Although there would probably be short-term price pain. All of the other coins are going to have like serious problems if Binance collapses. They're going to have a huge crash, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to recover. But Monero, I think, is going to have easier times. So here's the divergences. These are all the prices compared to Kraken. And you'll notice Binance in red. This week, they had a really big divergence to the downside, simultaneous with Qcoin going to the upside. So I'm going to add some horizontal lines here because I want to show you that we haven't had this much divergence since August when Binance suspended withdrawals. Here we go. Yeah, so this is August. And you can see they did it for much longer than they did recently. So recently it was just kind of like one spike down. But this is when Binance shut down withdrawals for 10 days in August while the rest of crypto pumped. And then Monero price mysteriously stayed flat and capped as Binance diverged their prices below Kraken. So you can see that we haven't had this much divergence since August on Binance. And I don't know why it is, but for whatever reason, it seems like that's correlated with Qcoin having a positive divergence from Kraken. So who knows what's going on there? And by the way, this is also the volume adjusted divergence. So if you don't make the volume adjustment, the price doesn't look so much different. Binance only diverged down by about 0.25%. But the thing is they did a lot of volume down there, right? So that's kind of the big thing that you want to look at. How much real volume are they doing at prices lower than Kraken? We've got the longs and shorts basically flat, not anything changed there. And as we talked about, this chart is the Monero dominance, and posing a little bit of challenges right here, but we'll see. We'll see if this thing can just break to the upside. I don't necessarily have any huge opinions on whether we need. I mean, naturally you would say that this chart should pull back because this has been such a long-term resistance. But sometimes crypto can surprise you. Perhaps this could just break out to the upside. And then Monero Bitcoin is just chugging along. Looks good. We're still in this kind of rising wedge structure, and you'll notice that this week we had a pullback, just like we were talking about last week. This 009 level is going to be a little bit difficult to get through, but ultimately you can see what happened here. That was just a wick. All we did is wick down for just a moment, and then we came right back up to the top side of this wedge. So really, this wedge could very easily break to the upside, something like that, and then go up. At least, the hopeful in me would think that could happen. So that's Monero. Let's go ahead and take a big zoom out picture. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. So if you're on Twitter Spaces, tune in to YouTube and you can see all the charts that I'm talking about. And when you do that, make sure that you change your resolution from 360p to 720p. Otherwise, your charts are going to be fuzzy and it's going to be kind of hard to make out the resolution. So I want to cover something again that we covered last week, and I think I could have done a little bit better job explaining it. So this is the M2 money supply. This is all cash, coin, checking, savings, and all time deposits of less than 1 year. And you'll notice that this chart has, very, very quickly, you can eyeball that it looks like an exponential chart. And on the right side, you can see we're on a natural scale, which means that each of these increments is the same. So plus 1 trillion, plus 1 trillion, plus 1 trillion. Now, the reason for this is because of compounding interest. So the United States Central Bank, right, the Federal Reserve, and all central banks, they target inflation as a percentage. And so when you're dealing with percentages, you're dealing with inherently an exponential process. And so this is the equation for compound interest. And this is discretely compounded. So like, for example, let's suppose you had 12% interest per year and you compounded that once per month. So that would be 1% per month. This is the equation that you would use. And you'll notice that there's an exponent here. And then if you were to compound continuously, so like every second of every day, you divide that 12% across, a million seconds or however many there are in a year, you would end up with an equation that looks like this. This is the simplified version of continuously compounded interest. And this is much closer to what overall in aggregate the economy does. And you'll notice that this is an exponential function. And so inflation, by targeting it as a percentage, is inherently an exponential function. So that's why you have an exponential process right here. And now we use the log, we come over here and we click logarithmic because it translates that exponential function into something that's actually linear. And so like, for example, notice that we have E, which is 2.72. You would use a natural logarithm to deal with this exponent here. So logarithms are how we deal with exponents. And you can notice that this basically turns what was previously an exponential chart into a linear chart. So the short version is that we're translating out of this kind of exponential curve into something that's linear, and that's a lot easier to analyze. So just kind of recovering again why we use log charts. There's of course you get better resolution on the lower time frames, or sorry, on longer time frames, but it's just mathematically appropriate to do. And you want to use log charts, particularly on assets priced in US dollars. Other assets, like for example, we're going to look at the inflation now. We wouldn't put this on a log chart because this is not priced in US dollars. This is just a percentage of what the inflation was year over year. So don't let this chart fool you. These the inflation numbers come out once a month. So TradingView just connects these dots to make it look like a smooth chart. So last week we just got the inflation numbers, and this was the last numbers that we had before. It was right here. Now you can see that they came down just a little bit, which is good. This is what we want to see. The Federal Reserve Chair Powell was talking about, okay, this is good. We want to see this trend continue. This isn't like any huge, drop in inflation. So you'll notice that core inflation, which they look, primarily that's the most important thing that they look at. So it's basically all goods, or it's all inflation minus energy and food. So the thing is, we need to see this continue. This trend needs to continue for the next, say, month, like at least 2 months, 1 or 2 months. And that should set us up pretty well for the markets to actually pump next year if this continues. So they were, cautiously optimistic about it. But essentially, these were kind of neutral numbers, right? Like it came down, not by a lot. We're still kind of high. Overall, this was kind of a neutral picture on the inflation. So this drove the Federal Reserve to raise by half a point, or 50 basis points, which is half percent. And that's the white line right here. So the other lines here, these are all the yields. So the different maturity linked yields, yellow being the 1 year, green is 2 years, so on and so forth. And you can see that we still have a full yield curve inversion here. So the Federal Reserve raised 50 basis points, which was pretty much what the markets were expecting. It's what the Fed said they were going to do. So that also was fairly neutral. Now, there's something that I think people need to be aware of when it comes to these big economic releases. I've seen in the past few months that there is increased volatility in cryptocurrencies, perhaps more than there used to be previously this year. My theory on that is that crypto people are finally realizing how important these big macro numbers are and how correlated cryptocurrency is to traditional markets. And so it seems to me that it's likely that market makers and hedge funds, maybe exchanges, are inducing artificial volatility in cryptocurrencies leading up to these big economic releases. For example, we saw positive action on Bitcoin and crypto in, like the week leading up to the Federal Reserve meeting. There was big volatility that day. Before the meeting, before the press release, there was a big pump in Bitcoin. And to me, it all looked pretty artificial. It didn't look real. It just, like for example, Monero didn't go up with it. And that's kind of a bellwether that I've started using, because the exchanges are out of Monero. They're out of fake paper Monero to sell, and people are withdrawing. So when there is organic buying, people are going to be buying Monero along with other cryptocurrencies. We've basically made it into the general broad consciousness of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. So people know about Monero, they're buying Monero, they realize it's important. We're not some obscure coin anymore. So if there's real organic buying, Monero's price should go along with the rest of cryptocurrency when it pumps. But that's not what we saw going into these numbers. Monero didn't do hardly anything at all. Meanwhile, Bitcoin and some of these others pumped from 7, 10, 15%. So that didn't look real to me. And then sure enough, after the press release, things started crashing, or really in the middle of it. So it's just something that if you're a trader out there, you just need to be aware that the market makers are probably very aware that crypto people are now trading these big economic releases. So don't let them catch you out with induced volatility is kind of the lesson there. There were some other numbers that came out, like the unemployment. You could see that we're historically low. This chart goes all the way back to 1950. And you can see that this came out on Friday, and we're still like 3.5%, just above 3.5%. So if you listen to Jay Powell talk, which is kind of dry and difficult to do, but he talks about unemployment being low and the demand for labor being so high is like basically the primary, in their mind, the primary driver of inflation right now. So with the unemployment numbers being very low, that means that there's very high demand for labor, and it means they have to pay their workers a lot higher. So that's a contributing factor to inflation. So overall, everything that we saw this week on these big economic releases, it was all neutral for the most part. Everything was kind of middle of the road, nothing inspiring. Here's a new chart that I wanted to show you guys. This is the single family homes, the median sales price. And you'll notice that it's very cyclical. So starting in January, you typically get these big pumps. And you'll notice that, you kind of get this like sawtooth pullback action. So we're coming in here into January pretty soon. And you might expect that this would come up a little bit. So if you're like thinking about selling your house, now wouldn't be a bad time, if you were already going to sell it. So that's kind of big macro view right there. Let's go ahead and let's cover a few more macro things actually. So price of oil, we're in this kind of big megaphone pattern, and oil's just kind of hanging out down here, which is really what we want. If oil can stay low, that's good. It was when we saw oil getting up here and the inflation started kicking off that was really bad for the stock market, because again, it means that the Federal Reserve has to contract and keep rates higher for longer, and that's not good for anyone that's holding a risk asset. So and then the reverse repos, also very important. We've seen them make a little bit of a recovery here. They've bounced to the upside. I don't think this will last for too much longer, but maybe we could go up a little bit higher. Again, I have been expecting a pullback, and I think that one more pullback needs to happen before we have the opportunity to make a big bounce to the upside. So let's get back to crypto then. Don't want to get too boring on all the dry macro analysis stuff. This is what we're looking like. So I drew a couple new lines here. Very big picture. This is total crypto market cap. And you can see that this line goes all the way back to 2015, nice long trend line. And, we broke down from this line a few weeks ago. And I kind of wish I had seen this. I didn't catch this until recently. I was too zoomed in. So ultimately we've broken through that line. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be difficult to ever break this line again. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't get close to it. That doesn't mean that, in the future, we couldn't push up here to $3 or $4 trillion again, maybe 2025, 2026, something like that. But for the moment, this line is solidly broken and is now definitely going to be resistance if we can even get up that far in the first place. So you'll notice that on a little bit shorter time frame, we've got our sort of descending channel right here, and we're testing the bottom side of that line again. So, will that line hold? Will it not? I don't know. It seems to be like a trend line that's overall just kind of the market has continually followed it down. So I kind of do expect that we should spend some more time going down before we go back up. The thing that will be bullish, that will really be a great sign, is to break this line at some point. If we can get above that line, because that's kind of been like the very top level limiter for total crypto market cap. So Bitcoin looks almost the exact same way. In fact, it's got, we didn't quite get there, at least the way that I had this line drawn. We didn't quite get there, but it's really not surprising that would have been a pullback. Here again, This is also on Wednesday when the Federal Reserve released their numbers, right? We just had like this a big pump, another big pump, a wick up, and then it dropped down. Like that's not good price action. So for example, in July when the Fed meeting came out, they announced, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Fed meeting. It was high inflation numbers, right? We had a big release on the inflation numbers. They were really high. The market tanked on that news, but then by the end of the day, it had put on gains, right? It went from being a big red dildo to a big green dildo. Well, this is the opposite right here. We had a few big green dildos here, and then it just totally reversed and went to the downside now. So that's not bullish. That's actually pretty bearish. So just be aware. Now, at the same time, it's, if you haven't already gotten out of this market, it's really hard for me to recommend that anyone sell at this point. The time to sell was in August. The time to sell was in April. But right now it's kind of like, it's, like I said, I've been expecting this pullback. I felt a little bit like I was playing with fire, saying, well, do I want to wait for another one? Maybe it's time to just get in now. Right now I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with my decision to wait. So want to cover the regression analysis, just a quick look. So again, big picture, this is Bitcoin. The red line is like the absolute lowest low that we could expect Bitcoin might have, statistically speaking, right? This is not, it's not like a fundamental analysis. It's just pure statistics. So you can see that we're actually getting really close to my targets here. And that's another reason why I haven't bought, because a lot of crypto assets look exactly like this, where it's like my targets are like another 15% down. Well, between let's say 10 and 20%, 10 and 30% down, and it's like we've covered
Bitcoin number there. So if we were
what's that?
If we were to hit the bottom red line within the next month, like what's like the number Bitcoin price?
That would be just above 14,000. Like if we crashed today, that would be 14,370 is what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And historically, this line has been off by 5%. So if you go back and you check these other spots down there, it's been like up to 5 or 7%, error range in the past. But yeah, that would be like 14.3, and I would definitely buy. Like if we hit that, I'm just going to be like, all right, fucking A. So, okay, there's another factor that a buddy of mine brought to me, and I'd forgotten all about it. It's the tax harvesting. It's kind of like that time of the year where people, when they have losses on an asset, they say, well, screw it. I'm going to sell the asset. I'm going to realize the loss. I'm going to use that as a write-off on my taxes. And a lot of assets have had a lot of losses this year. So it's actually like not surprising at all that the market would drop here, and it could continue dropping through the end of the year as people harvest their tax losses. So it's kind of another good reason to be pretty careful. The ideal situation to me would be for things to continue going down, maybe hit a low on the very last week in December, maybe touch this regression line down here, because after those tax losses are harvested, people are going to want to get back into those assets because most people don't like being out of the market. I don't like it. I've kind of been uncomfortable here, but there's really no better place to be. But people, they want to get back into the assets that they believe in. So they might sell, realize that tax loss, write it off, and then they'll get right back into that asset on January 2nd, I think is a Monday. So yeah, let's look on Bitcoin. That's kind of a good thing to keep in mind about that tax harvesting. Now, another thing that I wanted to cover again, we covered this last week, but I feel like it wasn't visually presented as well as it could have been. So this is Bitcoin dominance. And then you can see the orange line just overlays on top of Bitcoin dominance. So what we can do is we can subtract stablecoins from that calculation. And you'll notice that moves the orange line up. So the orange line is the adjusted Bitcoin dominance when you subtract stablecoins. Now, if we're being fair, we want to subtract other stuff like all of the lost Bitcoin, right? Which is something like 20-25%. So we're only doing 15% right here. And you'll notice, that kind of brings it back down a little bit. So maximalists are right when they say, hey, it's without the stable coins, Bitcoin dominance is doing better. Technically it is, but it's not huge. It's not like as amazing as you would maybe hope for it to be. So the other thing that we can look at is the Ethereum dominance, and then the stablecoin dominance, which is in green. So now we can do things like adjust for the total value locked in Ethereum. And I don't know why, but there's like some weird thing with TVL today where this line just shot up. So just ignore that line. But anyways, yeah, so this is the picture that it looks like when you make some adjustments that, probably should be made. At the same time, everybody looks at this chart. They don't look at the adjusted Bitcoin dominance. They just look at the straight up Bitcoin dominance. So it seems like it's kind of range bound. It looks like this chart is just going to be range bound down here for a while. Had a little bit of a bump today. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we could make it to the top side here, or maybe not. I'm not so sure about that because the Ethereum Bitcoin chart looks pretty bullish overall. So, oops, hang on a second. Okay, yeah. So this chart looks to me pretty bullish. Kind of hanging out here in this range. It's consolidating. There was this big move last year in the summer that brought ETH BTC significantly higher, and right now, I mean, this just looks like a chart that's going to keep doing this, and at some point, it's going to break out. Probably it's going to take until at least Q3, maybe Q4 of next year before this breakout happens. Or perhaps maybe the Gox coin have something to say about that next year whenever they get released. So, I mean, Ethereum is bullish, like at least against Bitcoin. There's a lot of reasons to think that Ethereum is going to be bullish versus Bitcoin. Like Monero, I think that it's possible that Ethereum could basically double bottom here. So this was the bottom in July. It could double bottom down here maybe. That white line that you see here, this is the lifetime moving average of Ethereum. So yeah, anyways, there's reasons to think that Bitcoin dominance is not going to be making any huge breaks beyond 50% anytime soon. So let me check my notes here. Yeah, last thing, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the traditional markets. S&P 500.
Ethereum is looking bullish against Bitcoin. Monero is looking bullish against Bitcoin. Is Monero looking bullish against Ethereum?
Here's the XMR ETH chart. We do have a nice uptrend going. It currently is bullish. You could say that we're currently in a bull market versus Ethereum, and this trend line is just relentless. It just keeps going. So in terms of statistical targets, you would say maybe this area right here. The moving average, like the lifetime moving average, could be a spot. If we do a measurement, that would be about 2x higher relative to Ethereum. You can see that. Let's switch to the weekly so we can get a better view. This area right here is just before the bull market took off and everything pumped, and the relative value of Monero took a big hit. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, there's every reason to think that this trend is going to continue. I don't see any big problems. This looks like a bullish. Like if we went down here at the lower time frames, we could probably find some more lines to draw and find some more reasons to feel bullish about this. Like, this is kind of a wedge structure right here. So again, so when you're in a bull market and you have a wedge structure, these things can very often be bullish. Normally, a rising wedge is going to be a bearish structure, but in a bull market, a rising wedge can be a bullish structure. So if you see us kind of popping up here and we hold this line, that's a really good sign that we would probably end up making it all the way up to here. So that's one way you can think about Ethereum. Ethereum versus Monero, or Monero versus Ethereum. Okay, so we've got the S&P 500. The yellow line again, the dotted yellow line is the pre-COVID highs, which has been my targets for a long time. The other thing is that you can see that there is momentum divergence. So we're making higher lows down here. Let me expand that. We're making higher lows on the momentum chart, which is a Z-score chart, even though we've been making lower lows the whole time. So it's really not surprising the pullback that happened recently. Again, you've got your overall just bear market trend line. We touched it again, and fell down. So, and again, this is kind of another one of those rising wedge structures. It's not as clean as you would want it to be, but it is sort of essentially basically a rising wedge, and we fell out of that. So there is the opportunity now that this thing could actually finally touch the pre-COVID highs. That's my target. That's what I wanted. And just like I was saying, like, everything has been hovering above my targets. My long-term targets have been down here for a long time, and we only missed that by like 3% on the S&P. And the NASDAQ looks very similar. We basically, how high above that were we? 7%. So we came within 7% of that target. And I would really, really like to get there, get close at least. So there's a good chance that this happens. And but ultimately, again, I do think that next year, everything is setting up for a big rally. The Fed is almost done raising rates. They've got like another maybe 75 basis points to go. They're going to just hold the rates there steady and see what happens. Now, the thing that will weigh on the markets long term is that if the inflation numbers don't come down, the Fed is not going to be able to just lower rates. So we might get a big like a big rally next year. And then the market might start realizing like, oh crap, you know, the Fed's, they're sticking to their guns. They're not lowering the interest rates. You know, maybe this thing could go chop sideways for, I don't know, a year, 2 years. Who knows? But at the very least, I think that we are going to have a good opportunity to get in on a big move to the upside. And if you play your cards right, you could probably take some profit at the top of that. You know, get a little bit back in the dollar, maybe some gold. So, okay, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was Binance. So there's so much stuff happening with these guys. It seems like this last week there was a lot of new stuff that has been coming to light. One thing is that, and so in no particular order, CZ got on CNBC and had this interview, and man, he was like stammering, he was equivocating, he looked nervous. He was saying like some really ridiculous things. The one that stood out in my mind, he says, in Binance, we are backed 1-to-1. All our assets are backed 1-to-1. And it's just like, you little liar. No, they're not. We know that you don't back Monero 1-to-1. We have like all of the proof that we need. So, okay, like lie number one. He said something else that was just dumb. He's like, the big four auditing firms don't know how to audit crypto, even though the fact that Coinbase, for example, has, I think it's Deloitte is their auditing firm, one of the big four. The other thing is that, so this company called Mazars, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but they did the proof of reserves verification for Binance recently. But then Mazars fired all of their customers, so Qcoin, Crypto.com, and Binance, and they said that they're not going to be serving crypto exchanges anymore. And they removed their Binance report, which was not an audit, it was just a report on the proof of reserves, but they removed that report from their website. So Mazars ditched all of their crypto people. So that's not good. I saw a chart that showed Binance's assets, more than 50% of their assets are either BNB coin or Binance USD. So that's kind of the same situation that FTX had, where like their own native token FTT represented the vast majority of their alleged assets. We have.
So what do you think the likelihood is that they, you know, worst case, like,
man, I don't know. At first, I was like, if you'd asked me that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I'm like, probably not. I guess I don't want that to happen, but I kind of do want it to happen. I would say they're on the ropes for sure, and maybe even CZ doesn't know. Like, he's out there doing all the same stuff. He's acting the same way that freaking Sam Bankman was acting before they went under. So, you know, there's another big one here. There is the potential that a clawback could happen on behalf of FTX. Mm-hmm. So in this Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceeding, they can do clawbacks. Like, for example, in the whole Bernie Madoff thing, people that through no fault of their own were not involved in the scam, they had just taken profits and they had gotten their money off of, out of the Madoff scam. Those same people had their profits clawed back in the bankruptcy proceeding, because it's like, yeah, you benefited. Okay, you didn't commit a crime. You didn't know what was going on, but you don't deserve those profits. They should be distributed to everyone. So who knows? You know, I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem like there could be some pretext or reason here for the bankruptcy proceedings on FTX to try and claw back that 2.1 billion that Binance when they sold off their FTT. Maybe that doesn't happen, but it's definitely not a zero risk. Like, it could happen, and who knows, that could be a big thing. The last thing that I'll say about them is that the United States Justice Department was considering charging Binance. They're like, the headline is that they're divided on whether or not they want to charge Binance with crimes. Now, unfortunately, it's all like, it's the usual crap, like unlicensed money transmission, laundering, conspiracy, violation of sanctions. But to me, it's like, what about the lying to their customers, the market manipulation, the coordinated fraud, and the selective scamming of their customers, liquidating positions for people that were nowhere near their liquidation point? Like, to me, that's the fraudulent stuff. They're harming people with all that. And I mean, I know that, the licenses are supposed to, like, it rolls into all that, but like, I hate that the government will focus on like their scribbles and like, well, you didn't get our permission and that's what we're going to prosecute you for. It's like, no, they harmed people by like stealing money from them. That's the fraudulent thing. So yeah, the US Justice Department is considering charging them right now. And that's like an open headline at this point. So they've got a lot of stuff. I don't think anyone here in Monero has their assets on Binance anymore. So I don't really need to tell anyone to pull your assets off there. You know, I'm preaching to the choir. But it could have negative consequences for price, at least in the short term. And hey, you know, that's fine. Let's get another little crash. I'd be happy with that. I'll
Let it
back
burn.
up
Let
on my
it burn.
Monero.
Burn it down.
Yeah.
Down.
We don't need them. You know, we would do better without them ultimately.
I mean, it's hard to, you know, obviously you feel bad for people that are, you know, that are involved in this, right? But
yeah,
we gotta wash these things out.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been saying since April 14th, 2021, is that this fraud has to get washed out for crypto to be taken seriously, legitimately, and for price to sustainably, organically rise. Well, hopefully that wasn't too much fire hose for everyone.
That's great info. As usual.
It is epic, man. These price reports are epic. For anybody that's listening on Twitter Spaces, you know, obviously they're better when you can see the charts.
But we also post
it. So we post it on YouTube. You can watch it live on YouTube as well, but then we post it separately on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch the charts, people that are in the spaces, go ahead and share this. Let's get it out there a little bit. Get some more people in the room. We ready to move on?
I think so. Anything else you want to say?
We got a lot of news. Bawdy, thanks so much, man.
Thank you guys.
Faces if you can. Greatly appreciate it.
I'm going to try and make it. I might have to dip out, but yeah, I'll try and be in the spaces later on.
All right, awesome. Thank you once again for doing the price report. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Adios.
Later,
man.
All righty, let's go on to
the news.
The news with our lovely Tony.
You know, I was thinking potential Christmas presents.
Oh my God, let's focus on the show.
No show next weekend. Guys.
Oh, come on.
No really. Show. That's
you know what?
Christmas present number
hilarious.
One. We're taking off next weekend. I mean, I'm sitting here. I'm thinking about things.
How are you now?
So that's a gift from me and the Monero community to Sunita.
Wow.
We're taking off on Christmas Eve. Right?
Oh my God, that's right. It's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Yeah, this is
no show. Christmas Eve.
That is wow.
See?
I don't know. We'll see next week. Let's see next Friday. He'll be like, we have to do a show. All right, let's move on. Good day. And now for our weekly news segment.
Hey guys.
Tony, you look so nice and cozy.
Thank you.
Where are you? If you want to tell people or don't tell people.
Yeah, I mean it's you know, I have my name in the Twitter handle, so they can just find whatever I do on the internet.
Where are you, Tony?
I'm in Romania, so it's a bit cold, as you can see.
Yeah, I can see it.
Is it snowing? Or is there snow on the ground?
No.
Okay.
But I'm also cold, and it's a funny story, and I'll be fast, and then we'll get into it. So I bought a pre-workout.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try, you know, because I've never tried this stuff before. And this is the second night with no sleep.
Oh my goodness.
0.
Why would you do that? You do not need a pre-workout thing,
I know.
Man.
I know.
Yeah. What are you doing?
No, no. So I'm not taking that anymore. It's
what is it? Just like a ton of caffeine? I mean, where's the
yeah, it's the equivalent of 4 Red Bulls.
Oh my goodness, bro.
Yeah.
What were you gonna do? What was your workout gonna be? You're gonna go climb the Himalayas? I mean, what were you gonna
Yes. That was because I don't drink coffee. I don't, you know, so I didn't know. So it says 300 milligrams of caffeine, 350 of taurine, beta-alanine. So I was like, all right.
Jesus, man.
Wow.
Go smoke some weed. Go smoke some weed. You got to even it out.
I don't smoke weed, and I thought, you know what? Maybe
Let's
I should
do that.
Yeah,
you have to.
I need to. I need to like flush it out of my system first. So.
OMG.
All right. Well,
all right.
Hopefully, you don't pass out during the news. Hopefully, it doesn't just hit you all at once.
No. Yeah, no, war on the bill.
Aw. All right, let's
Take it
move
away,
on.
Tony.
Yep, go ahead. Share
All
your
right,
screen,
so
my
let's
friend.
get into it.
That's hilarious. Yeah, please
Okay.
drink some water, hydrate. Do your
Yeah, I
thing.
do actually. Yeah, that's yeah,
You do that.
I do.
All right.
Okay. All right, guys. So if you're on Twitter Spaces, you can join us on YouTube, so you can actually see the visuals. So before we start, everybody, hands up in a space, comment on YouTube. Let's get numbers up, okay? And without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing that I want to mention is Bitcoin Magazine and how when there's something positive, I guess, for Bitcoin, they tend to just throw the word Bitcoin, and then if it's not positive anymore, they take it away. And this one, they said the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, chose Bitcoin's encryption standard for its CBDC prototype. It's not Bitcoin's. Bitcoin is using it, but it's not Bitcoin's, right? It's SHA-256. So there's nothing much to this story specifically, but I just wanted to mention how funny it is that they just throw the stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they love taking credit. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but
Can't blame for it.
it's not Bitcoins. But I just wanted to mention that. But this week has been crazy. We have a lot of bills. We have a lot of things going on, and let's talk about probably the biggest thing, which is Warren's new digital assets anti-money laundering bill. The proposal, it's crazy. Like it's crazy. So if I read and I'm gonna be shocked, it's because I'm shocked every single time I read it. It's insane. So the proposal will bring know your customer rules to crypto participants, such as wallet providers and miners, right? And if we scroll down below, so Elizabeth Warren, which refused to hop on the show, we tried. She's introducing a bill to crack down on money laundering and financing of terrorists and rogue nations via cryptocurrency. It's always, we've had that, and we'll talk about it in a bit. There's been the FTX collapse and other collapses, and they use this as a very good excuse to protect us, right? And
the thing is, it's not a good excuse though. Like it doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
This was FTX was fraud, right? And then this is about money laundering. Like it's completely two unrelated things. Like, oh my God, FTX collapsed. We need to save the world from fraud. So we're going to introduce a bill that takes away people's privacy when they use crypto. Like, how does that even be to solve the problem?
Exactly.
Disgusting.
And not only, because we'll talk about how they're gonna do it to the euro as well, and the dollar eventually. So not only that, someone said it should be know your banks and politicians. No, actually, there's a new bill on that too. So stay tuned in a bit. So if this becomes a law, the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act will bring know your customer KYC rules to crypto participants, such as wallet providers and miners, and prohibit financial institutions from transacting with digital asset mixers, which are tools designed to obscure the origin of funds. They really don't want you to have any privacy whatsoever. And we've talked about it in the last episode, how they don't want the digital euro to have the anonymity of cash. They don't want that.
Right. And in this scenario, they could even potentially categorize something like Monero as a mixer, right? So like you're not allowed to move from Bitcoin into Monero to quote unquote wash your coins.
Yep, exactly. And I think one article, because I've like three.
Yeah, I mean, if this bill passed, crypto would, I mean, crypto would obviously survive, but the attack would be insane. I mean, it's not going to happen. I don't think. I don't see there being the political will at all, like for things to really start to move in this direction. But really interesting that she's going for it. Really scary because really showing her cards, right? She's obviously in bed with the traditional banking system.
Yeah, 100%. And it also says that the act would also allow the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network to implement a proposed rule requiring institutions to report certain transactions involving unhosted wallets. Wallets where the user has complete control over the contents rather than relying on an exchange or other third party. So you are trying to protect us from FTX-like exchanges, but you are pushing us away from self-custody, which is protecting us from the thing that you are trying to protect us from, right?
Makes absolutely no sense.
It doesn't make sense.
And how would they even, enforce this? How would wallets even be able to do this, right? Like, how would, I mean, basically they'd be saying something like a cake wallet would have to KYC AML their users.
Yeah, I was thinking about Vic actually when I was reading this article.
Maybe somebody from Cake will jump in later in the chat to talk about this.
Someone said in the comments, because I'm paying attention to the YouTube comments as well, I wonder why they don't want us to have privacy, but they do have. Well, because they want they want control. Obviously, they're trying to. Makes no sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. And then I have 2 more articles on this, and then we'll skip ahead. But yeah, it requires devs to register identity and obtain a license, censor, and surveil users, bans privacy tools. And so I'll just read this part. Identify and record the personal information of every person who uses their software or sends transactions over their internet-connected computers. Develop risk-calibrated AML programs that block persons from using their software or network for throughput if they suspect those people are moving funds related to crime. And file reports about their users without a warrant, government request, or probable cause as the trigger.
This is crazy.
Yeah,
literally declaring war on crypto.
On crypto and just privacy in general, and then
on privacy, which is a vital aspect of true crypto. It's no longer like crypto would be completely defanged if this bill were to pass and it were somehow implemented, and all these companies went along with it. I mean, if people continue to use crypto in this fashion, it would no longer be crypto. It'd be Venmo.
Essentially, yeah. Essentially, Venmo on a large scale, if it's Bitcoin centralized, and we'll talk about that also. I think I have something on it, but yeah. But
I gotta say though, all bullish for Monero, right? Because this all continues to awaken the masses, and even those in crypto that have been like the BTC maxis all along, that are looking at this and realizing more and more that you need a robust form of crypto that is private on the protocol level, and to have all the protections in place where it can survive a state attack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree. So then let's see. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this is just not an article, more in depth of what we talked. But it also says, additionally, every FI, including traditional FIs like banks, custodial crypto FIs, and these newly classified crypto infrastructures FIs would be banned from making any transactions involving privacy tools. And they did mention preserving cryptocurrencies, Zcash, Monero, etc. Right.
And all these things would be considered financial institutions, is what they're saying, and they would have to abide by the banking rules. So,
yes,
wallet would be considered a financial institution. It's insane.
It's insane, and all because FTX, right?
Thanks, Sam.
God,
yeah, makes sense. Whoa, thanks.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, they were going to move in this direction anyway. So if it was FTX or something else, I mean, they're just looking for the impetus to do it, right? The political will, the energy. So if it wasn't FTX, it'd be something else. So let's rip off that Band-Aid.
Exactly. And then let's get into the next thing. Let's actually talk about Monero for a bit. And if you remember this guy, his name is Fiat Jaff, and he basically wanted to get money for someone to attack, to fund attacks against Ethereum and Monero, which was really funny at the time. And then his
reasoning was like, if we can knock Monero out, then maybe Litecoin adoption would grow in the dark markets is basically what his reasoning was. Like, because people actually use Monero, so we basically need to, knock it out, get rid of it, and then that will help Bitcoin grow. Pretty funny.
Yeah, to ensure Bitcoin success.
Talk about a a compliment, right? There's no greater form of compliment in crypto than to say you want to basically attack and get rid of another project because it's taking away your market share.
Exactly, but it's kind of like Nikola Tesla, because he said that he's not mad of the other people that stole his ideas or things like that. He's just sad that they don't have originality.
Right, and if he attacked it and it worked, well, shit, man, then Monero.
Great.
That we need something else. Like, thank you. You proved, right?
Yeah.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
We're investing in, Monero research.
Exactly. But he wrote this letter like, "Good morning. I tend to blah blah perform experiments and attacks that will ultimately cost a little bit of money." and then essentially Jack donated money, not towards this, of course, but Fiat Jeff. I think he's the main developer, or I'm not sure, behind NOSTR, Nostra.
What is that? What is Nostra? Do you know?
It's a decentralized social network, essentially, and I'll get into more details. But Jack Dorsey didn't donate for him to attack Monero. He just donated to this decentralized social network, which aims.
Well, he donated to this guy who's the main dev, I guess, for Nostra, right?
To further fund. I assume so. Yeah, it stands for notes and other stuff.
It is pretty interesting, though, that there's this connection there, right, between Dorsey and now supporting a guy who blatantly wanted to attack Monero.
Yeah, I'm not
sad. I mean, I doubt Dorsey was aware of the connection. Who knows? It was kind of funny because I had tweeted the day before when he made the announcement that he was going to put out grants. I was like, "Oh, donate to the Monero project."
You did.
He literally did the exact opposite. I would donate to the guy who's trying to take out the Monero project. Pretty wild. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit revealing about Jack Dorsey, right?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. He's really busy, so I would be surprised, but who knows?
Who knows?
But essentially, he donated money to this open protocol that aims to create a censorship-resistant global social network. So yeah, interesting. I don't know. So Jack Dorsey is giving out money, but yeah, Jack, please, donate to Monero.
Yeah, let me give money to build something that doesn't exist yet. That's pie in the sky, as opposed to just tweeting something positive about Monero. It'd be so much more impactful than the 14 BTC you just donated to this project. All you have to do is not even just talk openly about Monero. Discuss it. Come discuss it on Twitter.
Exactly.
Talk about it as this. You're such a believer in these these new forms of censorship-resistant decentralized tech. Here's Monero. Just come talk about it. You'll have an amazing positive impact on the ecosystem.
Exactly. Oh, check this out. He put #Nostra in his description. Well, he's sold.
All right.
Whatever this thing is. Yeah. So hopefully one day, I think it's important because given his position, and he's obviously interested in Bitcoin and censorship resistance. If you're so interested, why don't you talk about one of the best tools? Make it. But I don't know. What I do want to talk about over quick is SBF and the fact that the day before he was going to testify in Congress, they just arrested him.
Yeah, crazy timing.
It's crazy. So let's see. Before he was arrested Monday in the Bahamas, a disgraced FTX founder and former CEO Sam Bankman-Fried was planning to testify before Congress on Tuesday about the dramatic collapse of his cryptocurrency exchange. They've actually published the crypto Sam's planned testimony as his much anticipated congressional appearance is now unlikely, and Bankman is reportedly being held in custody, awaiting likely extradition to the U.S., where he is expected to face criminal charges. And if we are to look in the testimony, I think it's kind of hilarious. Can you just imagine him saying that in Congress? I would like to start by formally stating under oath, I fucked up.
Yeah, I saw that, I know.
How can you say that, like in front of Congress, you know? It's really funny. I know that it doesn't mean much.
Him, like, I feel like part of
he
I feel like this guy
apologized.
really just doesn't give a shit. Like, he really thinks like ultimately he's gonna get away with it to some degree. He's gonna go to jail, but I don't think it's gonna be that bad.
I don't think so.
But I mean, look what they did to Ross, man.
I know. That's pretty depressing.
Double life sentence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, FTX, he's not gonna get anything like that.
No. And
he just doesn't. He knows he's kind of like get away with it.
Like, but it's how can you open like that? You know, like you might say my honor, you know, blah blah blah, and then ultimately you say sorry, not I fucked up. Okay.
Fuck up.
I mean, his whole strategy is to make it seem like he was not willful at all, and it was just purely negligence.
Yes.
And, you know,
like honestly, might as well start with the one and then dot what. You know, like he posted on Twitter. But yeah, so I don't want to get much into SBF. He's not gonna get what he deserves. So let's move on. And just we're halfway through almost. The rest are kind of gonna go fast through them. But if you guys know more things about these topics, hop on Twitter Spaces after and let's discuss it, because obviously it's difficult for me to know you know, pristine details about every single thing. And I also want to thank everybody that sends me news. I really appreciate it, because people tag me now. They say, "How we should talk about this and that," and
awesome.
Nice.
Makes it easier in case. Yeah. So keep it up, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, people.
Yeah, I have not been able to keep up with the Monerotopia Telegram.
Your battery's running low.
No.
Okay, 5%. One sec. Sorry. 1 second.
You want to talk about that for now?
I don't have the article though. Brussels wants all crypto service providers to report transactions of Europeans. It's just, you know, more of the same. They're trying to crack down in Europe as well.
I'll
Oh wait, whoa.
talk about it.
Because this is the US plug, so I gotta put in the European one.
Okay. And he's back. What happened? He's gone? He's gone.
All
right. That was pretty classic.
That was pretty hilarious.
That last scene of
that was funny. I know his like shocked.
It wouldn't be Monerotopia without a few
we
bumps
always
in
have
the road
issues,
every
guys.
single episode.
Every single episode. That's what we're
it
known
adds
for.
to the character.
So
yeah, I mean, we don't have the full article.
Right here. I'll put it on right now.
Okay, I can't see it.
I know, I'm trying to add it right now.
I mean, basically, they want to implement KYC AML on all crypto transactions. Basically, the same thing as the Warren bill. I say we move over to
our guest.
All right,
let's
do it.
I guess let's
He's
do
been
that.
waiting patiently.
I finally got the article. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's get the guest on.
All right, let's do that.
Sorry, Tony.
But
we need to get the guest on anyway. So
yeah, so let's do that. Alrighty, let's get our guest. The Monerotopia guest segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys. Hello.
Yeah,
hey there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you for patiently waiting. We
Thank
appreciate
you, man.
it.
Appreciate it.
That was super entertaining. You guys go in depth.
That's what this show's about.
It's most underappreciated show in crypto right here. Monerotopia. Aeon, if you can you simultaneously jump in the spaces too, just so you're sitting there, so your people will see that you're in the spaces. Maybe they'll follow you in there, and then after a few questions here, we could just move over there and continue the conversation over there, so people can interact. Sound good?
Yep, just jumped in.
All right, cool, man. So what's going on? I know I've seen you on Spaces. I think you've jumped on Monerotopia before. but I don't think we never like really interviewed you. Had you as a guest, right?
No, yeah, we've definitely crossed paths a few times,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
and
having
now-
me.
I gotta say, man, I don't want to. Your voice sounds a little familiar.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
I've
know.
heard you. In
I feel like I've heard you or met you somewhere. Have we all met?
You may never know.
yeah.
Oh, we will know.
So what is your crypto story? What is your? I know you talk positively about Monero, but what's your crypto story?
Take it away.
What was your path to Monero?
Well, to Monero or just like crypto in general?
Yeah, crypto
How
in
far
general.
back you want to go?
Yeah, let's
Well,
go
yeah,
back.
obviously Bitcoin, came across it back in the day. I'm not going to date myself, but came across like kind of it was like this old animated video that someone got made for Bitcoin. It was kind of hokey. I was like, this seems like scammy gimmick, silly. Wrote it off. About a year or so later, came across the white paper, and the light bulbs went off when I read the white paper, because I have a technical background, and that's what did it. And I was like, all right. I was like, this is like BitTorrent for money. This is genius. And that was the relation that my mind made. And the very next day, went out and bought Bitcoin. Didn't even have a smartphone. Had a flip phone. Had to like print out my QR code. Meet this guy and like, here's my, and like run home, check it, and make sure it got sent, and then go back. And I was like, all right, I got to get a smartphone. But
beautiful. Would you use like local Bitcoin, or that was like before?
Yeah, it was local Bitcoin. Yeah.
Around what year was that? Like what time? You know,
it was early on.
Okay.
It was like, yeah, pretty early. But just followed the space and got into like education, doing local meetups, doing some consulting privately for people, and built a community and just kept the community growing. And I think if I give any advice to anyone in the space in Bitcoin or Monero is, build a local community, get meetups going, meet people, get peer-to-peer local exchange going. There's nothing better than non-KYC local markets. People start selling stuff for Bitcoin and Monero. People start buying stuff. The whole closed loop economy is super important. But when it got to Monero, like Monero was always on my map. Like ever since I saw it launch, and it was always on my radar. I didn't really look into it too much. And then probably like a year or two ago, I saw it really getting adoption on darknet markets. And I was like, all right, this is obviously a place where Bitcoin is held, it's cut its teeth for one. It's Silk Road is where Bitcoin made its use case, it like proved itself. And then two, it was predominant. No darknet market used anything but Bitcoin. And then I saw, Monero only darknet markets and just the usage going up. I'm like, all right, this is legitimate free market demand for this asset. And this is where people have the most skin in the game. So this is not just like them adopting it because they're trying to pump the price or, falling for some gimmicks. It's like these people have the most at risk, they have the most to lose, and they're adopting this asset.
Right, they're actually using it for a real digital cash need, and they're choosing Monero.
Exactly, and they're not LARPing. Like these people have the most to lose, literally. Right. And so when that happens, when the people with the most to lose are adopting this, it makes sense to me. And so I started digging really deep into it and learning, all the nuances and what is implemented in terms of privacy and how it works. And I realized there's a lot of things that I misinterpreted or didn't know. And I see those things reflected in a lot of maxis these days and Bitcoiners where they say, well, Monero doesn't do this or Monero does that, or you can't audit it, or you can't, the non-set. And a lot of those things they don't know the nuance about, because you can audit it to an extent, not as perfectly as Bitcoin. And the non-set is, has to do with the entire blockchain, not just what's in the specific block. And so
do you think it is they don't know the nuances of the arguments, or it's just, they're bag holding maxis that, are just going to, fight tooth and nail to try to pretend that Monero is, a shitcoin. Like they know the arguments, right? But they don't want to admit them fairly.
I don't think they know the nuance, because a lot of them don't really even care to look into it. Like I spent over the years, like I looked deep into Ripple and XRP and like just out of curiosity and like learned how their consensus mechanism works. And obviously it's completely centralized, but you know, they have all this anti-FUD and like you look into nuance of anything and you always learn a lot more about it. And so I learned a lot about just consensus networks and coordination systems in general by looking into XRP and finding out how ultimately shitty it is, but you still learn a lot.
What were
The
some of
same
the
thing with
big,
Monero, you know?
what were some of the biggest aha moments with Monero where you're like, oh shit, that's actually Monero's even better than I thought?
Well, definitely the ring signature set. So I always thought, like, didn't realize that when, you know, the ring signatures happen, it's taking random signatures from the entire history of the blockchain, not just, you know, the current block. And so that was a really interesting thing. Like, all right, this is mixing essentially signatures from the entire history of the Monero blockchain. And so that's a huge anonymity set, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the darknet market thing where, you know,
that's funny you mentioned that too, because yeah, I don't think that is explained enough. You know, I don't think it's put out there enough. You know it, I know it. Seth does a really good job at explaining that. But yeah, I don't think, obviously in general crypto land, people don't, they just, you know, anybody that knows it kind of superficially enough is like, oh, ring signatures, they suck, they're broken. It's like an anonymity set of 16, right?
yeah, or they don't realize the nuance of it again, because it still takes a huge amount of time and work. And the one thing I tell people about this space is there's so much nuance that you need to spend hundreds and thousands of hours to even pick up on Bitcoin's nuances, let alone, you know, something like Monero. And then I guess another aha moment was like, I mean, I never consider myself a maximalist. I'm back from the days when there was Bitcoin, there was altcoins, and there was shitcoins. And, you know, the shitcoins were obviously people scamming and trying to make money. The altcoins were people that were legitimately trying to experiment and build something interesting and unique. And then, you know, Bitcoin. And now it's like, you can't even say the word crypto or you're like strung up. And it's almost like a wokeism. If, like, in my opinion, it's like people get triggered because you say the word crypto and it's just silly. But, and then using Monero, like pasting a Monero address in public and knowing that no one can do anything to trace it or look at it or see what's going on is just, it was super empowering and just gave me that feeling of when I got into Bitcoin and started using Bitcoin, and using Monero like that gave me that same feeling. So
yeah, I think the stealth addresses was a big aha moment for me with Monero. Like,
it's just super cool pasting an address anywhere and knowing,
right.
like,
And there's nothing to look up on the blockchain. Like, you can't look it up. It's just not there. The address isn't even, you know, like that's, I think for people that don't really understand how Monero works, that's like an eye opener for them.
Definitely.
What are, you know, some of the things where you're like, where you still see great value in Bitcoin versus Monero?
Mostly just the network effect. I mean, there's a huge network effect that's obviously a thing, but I see them both working kind of symbiotically. Like on the spaces the other day with Spetsky that Stoic held, I brought up the point that, you know, with atomic swaps, both of these chains have a great symbiotic relationship, because one, if you atomic swap from Monero to Bitcoin, you could create block space demand for Bitcoin, which, you know, the fee market is a huge security factor in Bitcoin and Monero too. Mm-hmm. But Bitcoin.
You're saying as a symbiotic relationship, it would actually help Bitcoin in that there'd be demand for Bitcoin space.
Yeah, because when you're doing atomic swaps, it's directly, you know, between each chain, and, you know, the more block demand for Bitcoin, the better, because as we've seen, you know, blocks have been empty for Bitcoin except during bull markets, and so there really isn't any sustainable, or I should say sustainable, but consistent block demand outside of bull markets. So anything that creates that demand is a good thing for Bitcoin, and so I can see people easily atomic swapping to Monero for use cases.
So like Svetsky, I mean, I had him on the show too. I guess a lot more than a year ago. And I'm sure it was pretty much the same convo that he did in the spaces. He's just a super BTC maxi, right? Everything else will die. Monero sucking up all the energy Bitcoin sucking up all the energy in the universe. It's the measuring stick of money. So do you think a guy like that does understand Monero and is just ignoring it, or what's your take on that type of maxi?
It's hard to say. I'd have to talk to him more about. I mean, I'm sure he knows the talking points of Monero, but I'd be surprised if he knew the nuances, because most people don't. Like, you really have to look into it to learn the nuances of it, and a lot of maxis don't care to.
Yeah,
I mean, they might have time to, but they just don't care to, because they have this foregone conclusion that Bitcoin is it and that's it, and there's not going to be any other. And
yeah, and his response to something like, well, Bitcoin isn't fungible, I guess is that like, well, no, it is. Technically it is. It's just when it's interacting with the KYC AML world, that's where it loses its fungibility, right? And he'd be like, that's just not the way it's meant to be used. I assume that's what his...
Yeah, ultimately I see the fact that you can distinguish UTXOs as a risk and a weakness. So in Bitcoin, you can distinguish UTXOs, and therefore, state using their force can do much more with that than when you can't distinguish UTXOs like Monero. And so it's kind of giving them, showing your hand essentially. Even though you can mix and stuff, it's still, it's open. So you can see all these coins have been mixed. So
what do you see the trend being? Do you think, obviously, it feels like Monero is stronger than ever, right? In every sector, right? Except obviously price. More people are talking about it on Twitter. I see more Bitcoiners, being kind to it, being Monero curious. Do you think that trend, like we're just at the beginning of that trend, and things are gonna, Monero is gonna continue to grow against Bitcoin in terms of mind share as being the digital cash crypto?
I do. I see Monero getting, more popular, and I guess getting in the better graces of maxis, because I mean, having an ally like Monero in this world of increasingly corrupt governments, increasingly surveilled state, it's an increasingly adversarial world, and if you're not using tools that fight that or that protect you from those adversaries, you're just being kind of ignorant to the world you live in. And I always say Monero is built for the world we live in, and Bitcoin is built for the world that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So people are like, oh, it's circular economy, and we're going to become the world reserve currency, and state's going to fall, and cash is going to go obsolete, or fiat's going to die. It's like, those are great things, but that's not the world we live in. We still live in a world that's run by lunatics, and having tools that protect us from these adversarial environments are one of the most important things. And just the fact that darknet markets are adopting it so heavily it's just free market demand. And I usually tell people, I was like, but maximalism is the idea that value is objective, and it's not. People have subjective ideas of value, and people are going to value Monero, and it's stronger fungibility more than they value Bitcoin, and there's nothing you can do about it. People are going to value Dogecoin just because value is subjective. Doesn't mean it's better or worse, but the idea that it's just going to be Bitcoin is not something that I see for happening. I see Monero growing on all fronts, and even versus price versus Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Bitcoin saying that all assets go to zero against Bitcoin, and so I have an open bet since like last May, like 0.1 Bitcoin, that Monero will never make a new low against Bitcoin, and only one person has taken me up on it. There's no other max, and I ask all of them, like, oh, I don't bet my sats and all this. I'm like, well, then you have no skin in the game. Like, if you're gonna say this and claim that this is fact and economic fact, then put some skin in the game. But
yeah, it's funny, as Monero starts to climb against Bitcoin, then you start to see like the maxis come out too and start yelling about it. Like Tone Vase, like, right, he'll come out and like he'll do some video soon if Monero keeps slowly climbing against Bitcoin. on how, you know, it's ultimately going to go to zero. I mean, what do you think? Like, that's what I don't understand when they say, you know, it's just Monero is just a tool. Obviously, Bitcoin is just a tool, but it's like there's a little bit of cope there on the BTC Maxi side where like it's more so like Monero is like, you know, it's just a tool. Yeah, it's good for privacy. You could, you know, store your wealth in Bitcoin and then you can use it, whether Monero is, you know, $1,000 or only worth 1 cent. It works just as well. Like, I don't even understand that. Do you get that? I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Like, obviously, Monero works a lot better as a tool for being money if its liquidity is a lot larger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I see more and more people just holding Monero and using it. But I see that perspective too, where people are like, oh, just switch out when you need to and go back. And the thing is, it might be hard when Bitcoin fees are high to, you know, do an on-chain transaction just to swap into Monero. And so I see Monero just growing. I mean, people say the price against Bitcoin is, you know, lagging or whatever. But if you go back, Monero came out, you could buy like 1,000 Monero for 1 Bitcoin, I think. And now you can only buy like 400, 500 Monero. And so in terms of long-term price action, it's strong against Bitcoin if you compare it to other altcoins where they're just consistently going down against Bitcoin. But like I was saying earlier, in the world we live in, it's just going to get worse with the CBDCs and the stuff that what's her name's doing with that bill that she's trying to introduce.
Senator Warren.
Yeah, Senator Warren. And like ultimately these things are, you know, not going to go anywhere because you can't arrest all the developers. You can't stop people from building apps.
Do you see it as potentially being more of a catalyst? So it's like they do try to amp up this rhetoric of banning, you know, privacy coins or essentially banning privacy in crypto. And then that just, you know, kind of Streisand effect just leads to more people realizing what true crypto is.
Yeah, I do. I see, you know, the whole Streisand effect. And the same thing happened with Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht. You know, they tried to make an example out of him and give him 2 life sentences. But since then, the darknet markets have exponentially grown. And now the biggest ones are Monero only. So people, it's always a cat and mouse game. And usually the state is lagging because it takes them so long to, you know, push through legislation and debate and learn. Like they have no idea how this stuff works. And meanwhile, there's people, hardcore cypherpunks, just pushing out code every day. And ultimately, I see, you know, creativity and human imagination winning out as always. But there's people that will go along with the CBDCs and people that will choose a different path. And as long as we have those alternate paths and alternate systems, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, I already live in Monerotopia, so it's like I'm here, guys. I'm already here.
Oh, so it's not just a name; it's a way of life.
No matter what Senator Warren tries to do, I mean, I guess it just gets to the point where I don't know, it makes it very hard to use. I'm a Monero user living in New York. You know, it's not easy to obtain Monero actually in New York,
Yeah.
but it's doable here. It's doable anywhere. It certainly is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how dark do you think things will get? Do you think like it gets out of hand? Like we have the pendulum swings too far, and they actually really do clamp down on it hard?
Yeah, I could see, you know, maybe trying to ban mining just because of the, you know, all the FUD and all the propaganda around using energy as if it's bad. And
which would obviously be bullish for Monero, right? Like, because at least it's CPU, right? Like, so what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Check everybody's homes? Like, how's that going to work?
Yeah, that is one benefit to Monero, and I equate it to the, I think it was a Japanese general in World War II, where he said something like, invading the American mainland is pretty much, you know, you're asking to lose because there's a rifle behind every blade of grass.
Right.
And so I say there's a CPU behind every, you know, blade of grass.
Yeah, I love that.
in that situation, people dig up old computers and whatever. I saw a video of someone mining Monero on their like car.
Yeah, that was
heads-up
Howard. That was
display.
Howard Scher, the one of the creators of Random X.
Oh,
He rigged
wow.
it up on his car. He was mining it from his radio.
Yeah, that was awesome to see that. And then, yeah, because I mean, I think having that dichotomy between the ASICs and the ASIC resistance is great because, I see the benefits of ASICs and also the drawbacks. And then Monero is like, all right, well, we're going to try this way and go this path. And it's great to have that because then you have more redundancy against the state. And, we have more options. And so, and then if, banning doesn't work, and Eric Voskuil, who is a really great thinker in the space that many people don't know about. He's a Bitcoin developer and wrote a book called Crypto Economics, which goes deep into like the threat models and attack vectors of these networks, mostly proof of work. And he talks about these different stages, where there's like the honeymoon stage where they don't really care because you're not making enough impact on tax revenue, or they're threatening their monopoly over creating money. Then there's the black market phase where they try to ban it. And then if they fail at banning it, then they move to competition phase where they try and 51% attack the networks using either by co-opting hash power that's already out there or using their own hash power. And so if you have, a lot of mega Bitcoin mining farms that are regulated companies registered in any Western country, because people say, oh, well, if it's just the US, it's okay. You can go to some other country. But if you think about it, most Western nations, Europe, Canada, US, they already all work together against financial crimes and terrorism. And so it's easy to say, oh, if you're a miner in any of these nations, you need to blacklist these transactions. And at that point, you need black market mining to overpower white market mining. And people have to be willing to, one, break the law, and they have to be willing to be able to hide easily, because the more you concentrate hash power, the more it's easily to find, especially if you're using ASICs.
Right, and they have to be able to compete against these large corporations that have obviously this economics of scale on their side.
Yeah, and they don't have the risk of the state, swatting their house because they're,
they're in bed with the state. Yeah.
And so,
I mean, that's the thing. The way that really works out is that these large corporations want these regulations to come down. They're
because it's regulatory capture, essentially.
Yeah, they're going to be working with the legislators to try to get them to do it. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah,
it's kind of a little bit like what FTX was what Sam Bankman was trying to do, right? I mean, that's the direction those things
exactly. And that's how it was in the legacy system too. The pay off the media. He was trying to pay off the media. He was trying to pay off politicians. Like he was paying off Block, the news, crypto news site, or the CEO. And
what are Bitcoiners saying? Like, what is their response these days to the argument that the U.S. government could essentially capture BTC mining through creating regulations? Like, what is their argument? It's just that, like you said, like there's just going to be other miners like that are going to pop up, like people mining from their homes with ASICs. Is that like basically what they're banking on?
Yeah, I guess the best argument, well, I won't say the best, but one of the arguments I heard was that, people will just dump the censored Bitcoin chain, and the price would crash and all that. But how are you going to dump it? Like if miners are regulated and restricted from touching, or a blockchain that's not censored, they're not, exchanges aren't going to let you dump it. Where are you going to dump it?
But who's going to dump it when the incentive is that its number go up, right? Because as they're moving in this direction, though, they're incentivizing number go up, right? Now it's like, oh, now large banking institutions are more likely, to buy Bitcoin and put it in their coffers, right? Because now it's fully compliant.
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't really pan out in terms of the game theory, in my opinion. The best argument that I've come to the conclusion to is just distributed mining to the point where, having one or two ASICs, people mining in their homes or small scale in kind of third world countries where it's a lot smaller is really the only defense. I mean, the technical kind of defense is the fee pressure. And so if you have miners that are censoring transactions, the fees on those transactions are going to increase and hopefully incentivize black market miners to overtake, the white market censoring miners. But again, there's a lot of risk in that, because if you try to overtake a censor and then they actually have more hash power than you realize, then your block gets orphaned, and then you lose all the block reward and the fees for that, and you just wasted 10 minutes of electricity to have your block orphaned. And so it really gets deep in the weeds in terms of threat modeling. And one of the benefits of Monero is the fact that the blockchain is completely opaque and you can't tell UTXOs apart, is that they would have to censor everything. It's an all or nothing thing. Where Bitcoin, they can go to the miners and be like, oh, you can, get the fees from these transactions, the ones that are KYC'd, but you can't get fees from this list. And so they're able to make that distinction because the UTXOs can be differentiated. But with Monero, it's an all or nothing thing. So they really don't have any hand. Monero definitely breeds a more extreme or like just more dedicated person, I think, and would have a better chance of overcoming the state. In terms of
its privacy adds to its censorship resistance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I see somebody saying, who have all black markets? Is it BTC or XMR? It's Monero. I mean, Monero is not the only coin used on the black markets. Obviously, BTC still is. Aeon, do you have insight into there? I know you were mentioning that quite a bit. I mean, what metrics? Can we quote? Do we have any good insights into how adopted Monero is in the black markets?
There's some articles that come out here or there and that track it. I check once in a while to check on, what's going on in that scene. And yeah, I mean, the best metric is that there's Monero only markets now where, people say, oh, it's Bitcoin and Monero. And yeah, but now there's, there was White House market, which was Monero only, and it became the biggest market. And then they did an honest exit. So all right, we, accomplished what we wanted to do. We're not going to exit scam. We don't want to get caught. We're just going to, withdraw your funds and we're closing the market. And a lot of people attribute that to because it was Monero only. And it gave, authorities even less to go off of to try and take down that market. And now Alphabet 2 is back and they're Monero only and they're becoming the biggest market too. So that's really the best metric, is to find markets that are Monero only and that see that they're becoming more popular than the Bitcoin Monero markets or the Bitcoin Litecoin markets.
It seems like it'd be such a crazy risk at this point to use Bitcoin, though. Like, I'm surprised it's hasn't completely washed away, right? Like, if you're gonna
I think it's just because liquidity and people are just used to it, and it's probably easier.
I know the liquidity, but even that, right? It just seems like when you're pressing that send button for Bitcoin, I'm gonna send Bitcoin as I'm committing this crime. I mean, it's
it's probably just easier. There's probably tools out there and probably copy paste markets you can set up that already have Bitcoin implemented, and it probably takes a bit more work from Monero. But like I said, the people that do it, they have the most skin in the game, and there's a reason why they're doing it. And it's obvious.
So what do you think, man? What do you think normal Monero Joe Schmo can do, people in the community can do to continue to help grow adoption? What's any ideas there? How we take this to the next level?
I mean, I guess it's kind of the same stuff that Bitcoiners do, is just try and talk about the fact that, money, the creation of money should not be monopolized by the state, for one, because, they're corrupt and provably corrupt for decades. And two, it's just that it's too important of a system to have as to trust anyone to do it. But I mean, if you can mine, definitely mine, especially during the winter months. Turn off your heater and get, turn on your CPU and GPU or whatever and just start mining, because that always helps the network. And it's great that the Monero, I think it's the Monero implementation, the main one has P2P pool built in. So you just turn it on and it starts mining in P2P pool.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. And then just selling stuff from Monero, like starting a local meetup. Like, that was one of the things that got Bitcoin growing, was just, especially for me, it was just starting a meetup and meeting like-minded people and talking about it and sharing information and just helping people learn about it and get excited about it. Because as CBDCs come, people are getting more aware of the corruption and, you know, the Twitter files that came out recently. People were like, it wasn't such a big deal because people kind of already knew that it was happening. And even the stuff with Edward Snowden, like, that was a huge deal. And prior years before Edward Snowden came out, people were like, oh, the government's not eavesdropping on everyone's phone, like, you know, spying on people. You're crazy. And then it turns out they were. And he's a big proponent of Monero too, because
Snowden?
Yeah. I've heard him talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously more Zcash, right? I think only just recently, I think he's been more positively talking.
That's right. Yeah, he likes to talk about Zcash. And I was psyched for Zcash early on, and then the whole trusted setup thing. And now that they want to move to proof of stake, it's just, I'm not interested. But yeah, I mean, just building community, selling goods for it, supporting. You know, there's a great Telegram channel, like a Monero marketplace. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but that's a great spot. People buy and sell stuff. It's like, you know, a Craigslist, but for Monero. And just the grassroots stuff, the bare bones stuff is really what makes a difference in the long run.
Any chance we see you or hear you down in Monerotopia among the guests?
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. When is it? It's February or
May?
May. Okay,
yes, you got some time.
I definitely.
Oh, you're playing.
I'm interested. I'm definitely interested.
Or who knows? Maybe you live in Mexico City. We don't know.
Oh, I thought it was in Florida. It's in Mexico City.
Oh no, yeah, it's in Mexico City. Yeah,
Okay.
last one was in Miami, but we moved it down to Mexico City. Should be good.
Well, yeah, that's more intriguing than Florida.
Yeah, we got a little.
Florida's a nice place, but yeah.
And we were in the shadow of the Bitcoin conference, which we did strategically on purpose, right? Because we wanted to get, you know, some people that may be like, yeah, I'll go check out Monero, and more so to get speakers, right? They're already there in town. We could be on a, you know, whatever, come speak. But the reality is, most of the, like 95% of the guests, like, I think only went to Monerotopia and didn't even go to the Bitcoin conference. So I was like, why are we?
Yeah, that would have been me, because it's just it was really cringy to watch that, because it was just too much.
And Miami's just so expensive, especially with the Bitcoin conference, because then you're competing against Bitcoin conference. So like all the hotel rooms, it's like $350 a night for like a basic hotel room.
Damn.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Whereas Mexico City and Roma, it's like $40 to $50 a night. You get a good hotel or Airbnb.
Yeah.
Sick.
Good street food. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have a marketplace set up. Well, that's the goal, right? Unless it comes crashing down. We've been in talks with this marketplace, like this local marketplace. We're gonna bring him into the conference, so they'll be set up selling things for Monero, like local vendors. So it should be cool.
Yeah, that's rad.
All right, Matt. We're gonna move over to the spaces. If you can join us, please do. And we'll just finish off over there if anybody wants to jump up and whatever, talk about some of the things that came up today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, I'll be streaming the spaces right now.
Yeah, we'll continue to stream over here on StreamYard.
Yeah.
So we're just going to transition over.
Yeah.
Viewers on stage.
Okay, let's do that.
Bam.
Right, guys watching live on YouTube and Twitch, please have a little patience. We're going to transition over. Oakley dokley. Let me try to do this. I got to try to figure out like music in the background. Let's see if we can do that. I think there is a way.
Why'd you play the viewers on stage?
I'm going to go do that right now. Let us do that. It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down. That still cracks me up. Cracks me up.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Anybody that wants to jump up? Hey guys, anybody want to jump up and talk? Just request. Aeon, let me, you want to be a co-host up here? Let you speak. Anybody want to jump up, ask a question, talk to Aeon? Talk about the news. Tony, how's it going? You're back in action? You got your battery up? All right, guys, we'll close out the space if nobody's going to talk in it.
Yeah.
I mean, we covered a lot today.
Hey guys.
Tony, how you doing, man?
Oh my god, I can't believe, because usually it doesn't drain that fast, and then it just, when I plugged my laptop in, it just died. But that was
It's
funny.
yeah, it might have been for the best. We were going a little long in the news anyway. But we covered a lot. You covered a lot. Anybody out there want to participate?
You know what I thought? What if I continue with the rest of the news and then we discuss them together? Because I do have a couple of good ones left, and that'll be
Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah. Give me just actually 2 minutes, because I'm not in the kitchen. So give me 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Just 2 minutes.
Let's see who else I could bring up here. Bawdy, I'm trying to bring you up. Aeon, what'd you think of Jack Dorsey given that grant to that guy who a couple of months ago talked about wanting to finance an attack against Monero? Hey, Bawdy, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm just chilling. Just
Bawdy, what are your
coffee a
thoughts
second
on
ago.
that? I think you had put up a Reddit post about Jack Dorsey and his
yeah.
the recent grant that he made. Do you think it actually is revealing of something, or what do you think?
Well, okay, so I might have admittedly jumped a little ahead of myself and not been quite as clear. We don't know that he's funding an attack on Monero. But I asked myself, okay, this guy's harebrained idea to the best thing he can think to protect Bitcoin is to attack someone else rather than fix the problems on their own chain. Did he really make the next revolution in decentralized social media? And I don't know. I don't like Jack Dorsey either. It was under his watch that all of the shadow banning and all the censorship happened, all the politicization. Back in 2016, a lot of my anarchist acquaintances that had hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, they were all purged from, it was like Facebook, Twitter, and a few others, like all at once. And that all happened under his watch. So I just don't think that we can really trust him all that much. And, he's probably not funding an attack on Monero, but it's just like, I just don't trust the guy at all.
Yeah.
I don't trust him either, but the attack, hopefully they do it, because it's just trial by fire.
Right.
If these networks can't handle attacks by enthusiasts or just small fish, then it's not going to handle an attack by the state, because the state is pretty much economically irrational in regards to money, and they could just print or tax their way to wherever. And so the more the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, why don't we start a campaign to to encourage Jack to fund Fiat Jaff? Let's fund Fiat Jaff ourselves. Let's put CSS and be like, yo, bro, here's the money you need. You know, now
I
make
don't
it
know
happen.
about that.
That would be hilarious. Let's do it.
I mean, what's his plan? Is this plan just like spam the chain, the transactions? Is that like the extent?
It seemed like that, yeah. Which is, I guess that's fine, you know. Pay our miners. Why not?
How much money is he
Yeah.
saying he needs to mount
I
his
think he
attack?
said 16 Bitcoin. I think that's, but maybe I'm confusing that with a different number.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was very
I
high.
don't see that really doing anything. I mean, because I kind of think about it, if you know, like the IRS has a bounty out or whoever to try and break Monero's privacy, and if the network was that easy 51% attack or denial of service, wouldn't the state just try and do that instead of trying to de-anonymize it? Like, so it must not be that easy to attack if they haven't tried it. Because obviously it's a thorn. Well, it's going to become a bigger thorn in their side as time goes on, for sure.
I don't know if you guys have seen our transactions lately, but we've been ahead of Bcash and Doge for like the past week or so. So maybe they already started their attack.
Oh wow, we
December.
bumped back up.
Yeah, so we've been below them for a long time. Then we kind of back and forth, flipping each other on the transaction counts, and like for the last 2 weeks, we've been pretty solidly ahead for the most part. Although it looks like Dogecoin recently, just yesterday, pulled ahead.
We should try to get that guy in the room, the guy that wanted to fund an attack against Monero.
That would be awesome.
Can somebody DM him right now or
Oh my
message
God.
him? Message him, tell him to jump in.
Yeah, I will.
It's good that you guys are significantly more gracious than I am, because I don't think I would ever be able to convince these guys to come on the show.
I doubt he'd do it.
I mean, it's an open conversation.
I was hoping Andrew would come on the show, have a little chat about philosophy and anarchy, and we don't even have to chat about Monero if that's negative for his for the maximalist, his followers or whatever.
Did he ever respond to you? Did you?
Nah.
Oh wow.
It looks like the first person that offered, he responded to them. So I don't know, maybe and I don't have any followers either. So yeah.
Yeah, no, he responded to that first person who offered. I was like, and then you guys can come on my show and do it, because they said they wanted, a host or whatever. And then they're like, no, we don't deal with shitcoiners. That's basically what they said. And then it was pretty funny, because then you chimed in and you're like, hey, Andrew, I know you personally. I'll debate you.
Yeah, we last year we went to the same Halloween party, and I've known Andrew for maybe a couple of years now. Hung out with him a handful of times. We had like a whole debate on Halloween about whether 100K Christmas was happening, and Bitcoin was at like 65, 70,000 at that point. So it was like kind of a crazy call to be like, no, it's not going to 100K. We're going down from here. So that was a fun debate. But it's like, it's all in good jest. Like he's a really positive guy. So it's easy in a conversation with him to, to keep it positive, to keep it, keep good vibes.
So what was his take on Monero when you had him kind of like one-on-one? What was,
just all the typical, network effects and fungible enough and stuff like that.
Got it. Tony,
I think,
Tony, you want to jump in here with some stories that we didn't cover?
I do. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention a couple of them briefly, and then we can just discuss them. So let's go, because there's been some huge things happening. And the first thing is that I want to mention is a new judicial privacy bill that Congress is passing with a major defense package. So essentially, they want to attack our privacy, but they want to protect their privacy with this bill. And what it's going to do is, it's a bill that allows federal judges who have increasingly become targets of threats, violence, and even assassination plots to shield certain personal information about them from public view. And that is essentially, I guess, going to become a law. And let me see, there's something else written here. Yeah, so the bill allows the Federal Judiciary Administrative Office to file lawsuits which carry the threat of fines and other penalties against internet sites or other entities that don't comply with demands from judges that certain personal information be taken down. So they're obviously attacking our privacy, but they want to protect their own privacy as much as possible. And obviously, like, you don't want, your personal information out there, and you want to take it taken down just as much as we do. But it's an interesting bill that is being proposed, and then I'll mention a couple more things, and then we'll discuss everything. We have in the European Union, they want to put a 10,000 euro limit on cash payments. So that's interesting. And then transaction over 1,000 euro in crypto will be scrutinized. The CEO of Coinbase said that there might be a 50% crash on Bitcoin and Ethereum, additionally to what has been happening. So really low prices. And I also want to mention DCJ, which is it's under the name of a digital currency group. It's a US-based company. And more specifically, there's a Dutch cryptocurrency exchange, Bitwavo, which has 280 million euros stuck in this platform because DCJ is currently experiencing liquidity problems. So as a result, DCG has suspended repayments until this liquidity issue has been resolved. So we've had many problems with all kinds of exchanges. Obviously, you shouldn't use them. And they're not protecting us from them because they're pushing us away from privacy, self-custody, and all these things, all the while protecting themselves more and more. And then also want to mention the Trump NFT, which you guys have probably seen. He wrote, "America needs a superhero. I'll be making a major announcement tomorrow." And then Biden wrote, I think, on the same day or the next day, "I had some major announcements the last couple of weeks too. Inflation's easing. I just signed the Respect of Marriage Act. We brought Brittany Griner home. Gas prices are lower than a year ago, and 10,000 new high-paying jobs in Arizona," which he has been quoting a lot. And there's a couple of more things. So that's it for now. Let's discuss some of these things because they're really interesting, guys. So hop on.
Yeah, good stuff. The digital coin group, I'm interested in that. Anybody have any insight into that? Is that is there a real threat to them right now? I mean, if they were to go down, they're a tremendous part of the ecosystem. They got their hands in everything. Aeon, you have any insight into that?
No, all I remember from them is they were big on the SegWit 2x, hard fork. But beyond that, I don't know too much. I know they have their hand in a lot of aspects of the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it funny on the fact that they're trying to protect us from these things, yet they're pushing away self-custody? It does not make any sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a bait and switch kind of thing, because I always tell people, like, you might be able to get some politicians like to agree that, okay, mining does like stabilize the grid and help incentivize green energy, but you're never going to be able to get them to agree that monetary or economic activity shouldn't be censored or regulated, or that they shouldn't issue money and have seigniorage. Like, those two things are like the innate functions of what the state wants to preserve. They want to regulate economic activity, and they want monopoly over the money supply, and that's the two things that crypto is trying to do.
You did mention mining, so I do want to mention one website, which I think it's new. It's called gupax.io, and I haven't used it, but it's a cross-platform GUI for mining Monero on P2 pool, and it's using XMR rig, and it's essentially pretty friendly to use. So you guys should check it out. I think it's really new because I haven't seen it before.
You said it's gpux.io?
GUPAX. So GUPAX.io. I haven't seen this before. Someone
Oh, there it
tweeted
is.
it to me. Yeah. So I thought it's interesting. But
Oh, yeah.
all these things. Oh, and then one more thing that I want to mention. If you look up also simxl.com, SimXL, they're the first eSIM provider in the world that accepts Monero for 190 plus countries, which is pretty cool. I haven't looked into their prices, but it's cool that they accept Monero.
Bawdy, you got any insights into DCG Group, Digital Coin Group?
Probably not too much more than what anyone else has said here. They started up in 2014. They seem to be spidered into like almost every aspect of the crypto ecosystem. They've got ownership stakes everywhere. They're the primary guys behind the. I dropped out for like 5 minutes there, so if I'm repeating things, forgive me. Y'all might have already covered it. But yeah, they so obviously they've got the GBTC, which is at like a negative 50% premium. There's a lot of speculation that GBTC played a significant role in the price performance. Essentially, it was trading at a premium on the stock market, so these companies could they could buy GBTC directly from the trust. They could hold it. I think it was 6 months or maybe 9 months. They had to hold. They couldn't sell, but then after that period, they could sell for the premium. So it was like basically free money. So that played a somewhat significant role, I think, in helping to get price up. And right now, it looks like GBTC. So they've been trying to turn it from a trust into an ETF, and that way it would mirror the price of Bitcoin. Right now, the way it's set up is just like it's a straight trust. So you can buy Bitcoin, or sorry, you can buy shares of GBTC directly from them, and then they use that money to purchase Bitcoin on the open market. But since like 2016, they haven't gone the opposite direction. So they want to turn it into a spot ETF instead of the current trust structure, and then that way you won't get this huge premium. But the SEC keeps denying them, so they're actually suing the SEC right now for continuously denying their application. They might have problems. Like there's this speculation, and I don't understand legally. Like I'm not really savvy on the details, but there's this problem that if they can't get it converted into an ETF, they might have to do some like crazy restructuring, and that could cause problems upstream for GBTC. I mean, I don't know. It's all really speculative.
Yeah. Additionally, we do have. I think Doug, you pinned that DCG related assets are being sold off aggressively. Strong likelihood they're dumping. Bad news likely to come.
Yeah, like Filecoin, I guess they're big in on that. They're big Zcashers too, right? Yeah,
they've like Barry Shilbert is always shilling Zcash, or he has been for a long time now. Yeah, they're not really. To me, they're kind of part and parcel of the whole co-opt, like the cryptocurrency system being co-opted significantly in 2014, like when Blockstream came on the scene. It seems like that was the year that they formed all these corporations, and then the government started putting people in jail for selling Bitcoin, like individually. It's like they cleared the way so that only their corporations could operate, regulatory capture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I met Barry at an event in New York City at Bloomberg in I guess it was like 2015. He was there giving a talk, and it was really the first time I kind of started hearing the meme being popularized that Bitcoin is digital gold. Like it was the first, and I questioned him on it, and kind of, I was like, how about, Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's meant to be, digital cash. It's meant to be used for transacting. Yeah, he was not having it. He didn't like it. He liked the digital gold meme. Anybody else want to jump up?
Yeah, please do if you want to. Also, I do want to mention that I don't really like the name digital gold because, I guess maybe, but because just because I think of gold as being something that just exists, like there's no force needed for it to exist. Whereas Bitcoin, if you stop mining it, it ceases to exist altogether. So kind of don't like to use the digital gold.
That's a really good. That's like really good thing to point out. It definitely breaks down right there.
Like it for me doesn't make sense. Like digital gold, but gold will exist no matter what. You know. For me, I don't like this. Not a big fan.
Yeah, there's a lot of rhetoric like that in the Bitcoin where it's like Bitcoin doesn't care. TikTok next block, like it's this autonomous thing, and it's like no, it actually only exists because it's being mined and it's being transacted. And that's it.
Exactly.
Did you guys know that if you don't stack fractions of pennies, that makes you arrogant? Because if you're not stacking sats, you're not staying humble.
Exactly.
Seems to be the conclusion from that phrase.
Well, the whole infinity divided by 21 million is, you know, it's obnoxious.
But see,
yeah,
the thing is that you should be sure that the technology should be used for a purpose. For example, we know that Monero should be used to be spent, but in Bitcoin, there's so many conflicting views. Oh, it's actually meant to be held. Oh, it's actually meant to be spent. Then there's something within the technology itself that doesn't make it clear, you know. And then we can get into the fees and the mining and the centralization and all these things that will make it a poor choice. But it's interesting because in Monero we don't think about it. Yeah, I mean, or like let's take a better example. Let's like just fiat dollars. You don't think like if it's money, you should be able to. If you can spend it, why won't you be able to save it, right? Because ultimately we want something to just hold, and then from that little reserve that you spend it, you go to the store and do all this stuff. So there's a lot of confusion within Bitcoin because also the Bitcoin trajectory is confusing as well. What is it? You know.
It's ironic because hodling does nothing for the security model. It contributes nothing to the security model of Bitcoin. I understand the reasoning behind it, and you know the devaluation of people's currency and understanding why that's important. But in the long run, hodling it does nothing for the security and growth.
What's up, guys?
Monemex, what's going on, man? I just put one of your tweets up top, actually.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I did that on LaTeX. I was thinking about the supply, and it's like there's no formula because I was seeing these memes of the Bitcoin formula, and said like, hey guys, we also have a formula, so let's fucking do it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I was talking to a guy about the digital gold stuff, and he said my concern with Bitcoin was that every year, right? Like a lot of Bitcoin get lost. There's like a decay rate, okay? And this rate, it also compounds, right? So in my mind, I told him like, hey, this eventually over a long period of time, the liquidity of Bitcoin, the circulating liquidity, is gonna drop to zero, and that's bad. And he told me, no, but it's like in gold, right? He told me in gold, like gold gets lost also, right? And then I thought about of course, gold get lost, but if gold miners disappear tomorrow, like gold still exists as a market, right? But if Bitcoin miners disappear tomorrow, the Bitcoin network disappears.
Great point. That's exactly what we mentioned. And one more thing that I want to add to what you said. If you lose gold, like if you lose a piece of gold, you can find it later. Whereas if you lose a Bitcoin or a Monero in a wallet and you lost the keys and everything, you're done. If it's in your self custody. So there's also that. That's why I don't like the digital gold narrative. So that's an interesting point. That
you could thank Barry Silbert for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
One response to hear the Maximo say is that, oh, well, you know, if the Bitcoin keeps dropping lower and lower because of lost Bitcoin, you can just divide, you can just move the decimal over, right? You could have fractions of Satoshis. That would require a hard fork, I'm pretty sure, for them to do that. And they never want a hard fork again.
It's true, it would.
Yeah.
Hey, do y'all know are they getting any replacements for their their GitHub maintainers? It seems like they've lost, I think they lost Jonas Schnelly, and a few others.
Well,
Which
they also
also,
lost Arctic Mine in 2014.
Adding a zero or removing a zero, it's also a form of inflation. Like a lot of countries, for example, Mexico, right? Like whenever they inflate, they just remove a zero or they just keep adding zeros, whatever, right? So it's like a roundabout way of inflating the supply.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
it's funny that I mentioned that because the same happened to our currency in Romania. Like we used to have 100 of our currencies to be 1 million. And in fact, we still talk in millions, but it's actually 100 because they just cut zeros. Exactly. Good point.
Yeah, an interesting factoid is Bitcoin will have to hard fork in the next 100 years, I think, because of the Unix timestamp bug. There's a overflow. A certain year, there's an overflow on the Unix timestamp, and Bitcoin will have to hard fork in order to fix it. I think it's 21 something, but probably it's a long way, but it's a thing that has to be hard forked or the network breaks.
It's like the Millennium bug.
Yeah, it's like an actual Millennium bug that will break a lot of shit. But
Bitcoin's
yeah, you look up
Y2K.
Unix timestamp overflow. There's a wiki on it.
I think technically they hard forked twice when they introduced the inflation bug and then when they forked it out.
Yeah, it's definitely hard forked in the earlier days, but nothing that was on purpose.
I do want to mention one more thing. So ultimately, a lot of people believe that Bitcoin is just some rare Pokemon card that you should just hold. But if they actually want a different financial system, and this is specifically to the people that believe that you should just hodl and not really spend, then you need a second solution, right? The one in which you actually spend. So then you need to at least look out to something like Monero. And some people say, yeah, saving Bitcoin and then spending Monero. They kind of realize that, but I really don't like for something that is supposed to be a currency or something related to actual money. I don't like the rare Pokemon card ideal.
But that's how you save the world, bro. You vote and you hodl.
Oh yeah,
They're both
exactly.
equally as effective at saving the world.
Aeon, what do you think about Bitcoin's cap, and if there'd ever be like real debate around adding a tail emission to Bitcoin? You think that would?
There is.
Well, I know, but I know there's talk, but I'm talking about some real momentum behind it. You think that will ever happen?
I'm not fully for tail emissions. It's kind of a nuanced view because in the aspect of 51% attack, tail emission actually funds the attacker. And so like I was saying earlier, where fees push out the attacker if someone's trying to censor the chain, the attacker is always going to get the block subsidy. And so they don't have to worry about that. But if they're censoring transactions, they're not going to get the fees on those transactions. So the less subsidy and more fees there are to push out the attacker, the better. So in that aspect, I hope Bitcoin doesn't do tail emissions and it works better on Monero because you have to censor all of the Monero transactions if you're trying to 51% attack. But a tail emission on Bitcoin, I think, is a bigger security risk because you can, differentiate UTXOs and the fee incentive gets damaged by that.
That's
What do you
interesting.
think about the block value attack? Do you think that's a risk point for Bitcoin at some point in the future, or not really?
Which one?
So it's a block value attack. It's so at the point that so at the point that the block reward starts dropping significantly lower than the fees, and potentially you could see significant variation between the value of one block and the value of another block. So what might happen is you might have one block that's very valuable and that gets mined, and whichever miner takes that reward. But you end up with this incentive for the rest of the miners, and they don't even have to cooperate. That they decide, no, I'm not going to mine on that block that was just mined. I'm going to keep mining on the high value block and try and orphan that block. And then when they if they're successful, what they do is they leave some of those block fees for the next miner, so that their block to replace the other one will get picked up, because the other miners will have the incentive to pick up that block because they left some of that value on the table for them. So it doesn't even require cooperation between the miners. And I want to say Ethereum implemented some kind of mitigation for this. I'm not entirely convinced that it is a big problem, but I don't know. I thought maybe you had some thoughts on that.
I actually never heard of it, but it's a good point, because yeah, it's definitely a scenario that could happen, because there's economic incentive to, or ignore a block if it has a bunch of fees, and then it's kind of like
it happens when there's significant variability. Like one block is worth a lot, and then the next block would be worth significantly less.
Yeah.
It might not be a problem. We're not totally sure.
It depends how the fee market really evolves, I guess, because that's the problem with the whole censorship thing. Where the black market fees, the transactions that are being censored might be really high, but it's only might be high for one block. And then what's the incentive for anyone else to mine on that block if they might get orphaned and they're not getting any fees out of it? So the only incentive is for that first miner. And even then, it's a risk because they might get orphaned too. So
I was thinking
really interesting.
Maybe it wouldn't be a problem, because if this starts happening, it could just be the case that if you mine a high value block and you know that the next block is low value, you might have to leave some of those fees on the table to prevent someone else trying to orphan your block. So it might just solve itself.
Guys, just sharing the notes, a post by Peter Todd. Maybe some of you guys saw it. Some of you guys haven't saw it. It's he describes in mathematical form why telemission is not inflationary, but he was talking about it for Bitcoin, right? And this guy now, I saw a comment from him where he's saying that probably the correct way to do it in Bitcoin is not by telemission, but a mechanism called the Moorage, right? Where there's basically a garbage collection by the miners, where if you don't move your UTXO in certain amount of years, it gets collected back into a network. So the emission is actually fixed in 21 million. If Bitcoin does implement that, I think it will have a use case. Otherwise, it's destined to death.
It is interesting. I mean, it makes sense if you're calling Bitcoin property, right? It's like adverse possession of your Bitcoin because you're not using it for anything.
That might be kind of hard to.
I don't think that would happen. That would be a lot of pushback because, who's to say that someone just has, half a stash they're spending, then a bunch of stuff they're just hodling for, decades.
It is an interesting way to look at it too, that the tail emission is essentially a tax on everyone, right, including the hodlers. Whereas in Bitcoin, the hodlers don't pay any tax into the system to maintain their coins.
Yeah, they don't add any incentive to the miners because, people the fee, the subsidy is over 100 plus years. It's not really. In 7-8 years, the subsidy will be less than 1 Bitcoin. And by then, the fee market has to be pretty mature. Unless 1 Bitcoin is worth, millions of dollars, but that's not guaranteed.
Yeah, the hodlers aren't participating in securing the network in any way. They're kind of just getting a windfall.
Yeah, it's funny. They think hodling creates demand, but it doesn't. You can have 1 Bitcoin, but if there's no demand for it, and there's 80 million of those sats are hodled, but there's no demand for the 20 million, that doesn't mean hodling creates demand. It's a misunderstanding of economics.
Someone had posted this a study, or I don't know, they were looking at are fees actually replacing the block reward, and the answer is that over long periods of time it doesn't look like it. So if Bitcoin hypothetically has a low price, maybe we chop sideways for many years. Perhaps the Federal Reserve is just no, we're going to keep rates high for a long period of time. It seems I don't know, there's potential for that to become a problem. But I don't know. There was someone put a study. Maybe one of y'all has seen that. But yeah, it said that fees were not replacing the block reward as expected.
Yeah, I do remember that. I forgot who did that. Yeah, if somebody could find that, that'd be fun to look at again. I don't think we ever did a show on it. It would be cool to get that guy to come on. By the way, we're trying to get Peter Todd to come to the Monerotopia. I've been talking to him. He didn't say no. He was kind of interested. He didn't think the reimbursement was big enough that we were going to give him to get him to come down there, but I think we could amp that up a little bit and convince him. It'd be very cool to have him down in Monerotopia, right? Would you guys be into that? Tony's giving 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Right? That'd be cool, right?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
We've had him at Monero parties in New York when we did them back in the day. He's a friend to Monero. At least he was. I don't know. It seems like his tune has changed a little bit recently.
Doesn't he say Lightning is just as private as Monero now? That's the last I heard you saying.
Yeah, no, it's hard to kind of put your finger on what Peter's thinking. He's kind of just like the ultimate pessimist with any tech, and he's always just pointing out it's like its worst flaws at the time. He's the ultimate skeptic. But yeah, it seems like right now he's more friendly to Lightning, which is interesting.
I think he came up with the hashing scheme where instead of being able to parallelize the search for a hash, so you could have like thousands of ASICs trying to find the same hash, is that you have to do like millions of hashes back to back to back to back, so that your limitation is like basically the speed of silicon, as opposed to being able to just put more ASICs out there. And I think Sol developed their chain around that. It doesn't seem like it worked so well for chain security. But it is a potential solution for Monero to be able to have some kind of time lock that doesn't require a script, so that potentially Monero could have a Lightning network. That's one of the few ideas about how we could do that.
Who's the best person to talk about a potential Lightning network on Monero? I know Seth gave a talk about it. Any thoughts? Who would be a good person? Who's kind of be a good expert to talk about that theoretical Lightning network on Monero?
I saved a source where someone had come up with a new Lightning construction, so let me see if I can find that. And hopefully he's on Twitter. And I'll send that in the chat here.
I think I know who you're talking about, right? It was a research paper on it.
Yeah, I tried to read it, but it was just like beyond me.
Yeah, I think we actually talked to that guy. Guys, I think I'm gonna close it out here. If anybody else have anything they wanna say, we covered a lot today.
Yeah, I want to say something. So if you guys should check out Seth's talk about Lightning Network. I don't have anybody in mind that could talk about it, but Seth has a lot of experience with Lightning Network, and he gave a talk about it and how maybe we should implement it in Monero and what things to avoid from Bitcoin and how it would be different. So you guys should definitely check it out because it's very interesting. So I wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, and Seth, as always, was able to explain it in a way that people like me can understand. But yeah, we'd love to continue that conversation at Monerotopia. Have somebody come talk about theoretical layer 2s on Monero.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome. And let's get Peter Todd. I mean, maybe we need to do a bit of funding to get him, but I'm sure it's not going to be 25,000 like Snowden, but I'm sure it's going to be a bit less.
You never know. All right, guys, I'm going to close it out. Thank you so much. And thanks for being the special guest this week.
Yeah,
Bawdy,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, man. Hope to see you down in Mexico. Obviously, we won't know who you are, but maybe we'll recognize your voice. Tony, as always, thanks for the news. And Bawdy, man, great job, man. Greatly appreciate all your participation with Price Report and then just all the knowledge you're always dropping in here. Oh, wait, we had somebody that...
you having me on.
Yeah, we had somebody that requested to speak. I guess I'll give him a chance. Oh, no, he just dropped out. Guess who's back? You want to say something before we close it out? No? Okay. Monemex, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. Oh, wait, no, he's requesting. All right, man. Leave no man behind. What's up, man? say your piece, and then we're going to close it out.
Oh, I was just going to mention with the whole Bitcoin is gold narrative that you guys were talking about earlier. I think the Monero community should focus on strengthening trading pairs between Monero and gold, precious metals, gold and silver. Local Monero accepts gold and silver as currencies on local cash in-person purchases. They're listed under XAG and XAU, which are the symbols for physical gold and silver ounces. I think we should strengthen the ties with those communities, including local Monero and Havino accepting gold and silver or providing gold and silver on ramps and off ramps for so you can switch between Monero, gold, and silver, and then we can just basically make a CBDC proof on ramp and off ramp, because CBDCs will always have to accommodate buying gold and silver, because people will want to buy jewelry, they'll want to buy coins and bars. I think it's kind of a workaround around CBDCs and programmable money that we can start working on now. And gold and silver for savings, Monero for cash or spending.
I think that's an excellent point, man. I know we've talked about that offline. Yeah, I totally agree. Let's build out that infrastructure. We had the Goldbacks guy on, and I was trying to get him to get a Goldback supplier to accept Monero for purchase of Goldbacks. But yeah, good point. Local Monero, it's on local Monero today, right? It's listed there as an option.
Yeah, it's
very cool.
On Havino, it's probably XAG and XAU for silver and gold. But on local Monero, I asked them, why don't you have gold and silver as local currencies for on-ramp? And they said, we do. It's under these symbols, which almost no one knows. So they instantly changed it to say gold and silver, and then in parentheses, XAU and XAG. So they were very responsive and very on board, and I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I was thinking of working with the Goldbacks guy on this, and maybe even doing it myself to offer, becoming a Goldbacks distributor. You think people would be interested in it? You think there'd be some demand? People to buy Goldbacks with Monero?
I think there's a huge interest in places like, well, not places, but like in New Hampshire, the Free State Libertarian Movement. People use Goldbacks in local economy. They're in circulation along with Monero. Monero is actually very popular along with Goldbacks for the Free Staters.
Yeah, 100%. All right, guys. I think we will close it out there. That's all. Go to Monerotopia, grab tickets, just because that helps us out, helps us, gain momentum for the event. Reach out to us if you want to participate in any way. If you want to, somebody that should be a speaker, you want to be a speaker, you want to come vend and sell something for Monero, whatever it is, any idea you have that's related to the conference, reach out to us. You can DM me or whatever.
Maybe invite the Goldbacks.
What's that?
Maybe invite the Goldbacks guy to Monerotopia.
That is a great idea. I don't think I've reached out to him yet. Yeah, maybe get him to come down and speak or something. Yeah, or he could vend. He could vend there. It might be, I don't know if he could, how much gold he can bring, how many Goldbacks he can bring down to Mexico City. But yeah, that's a great idea. Guys, we're gonna cut it out here. We're not gonna do an episode next week. That's gonna be one of my Christmas presents to Sunita. So we could take a break next weekend, so we're not going to be doing a Monerotopia on Christmas Eve. So we'll see you. Maybe we'll do a show on New Year's Eve, or we'll see you after the New Year. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.